In the Middle Ages, a new civilization was built on the European continent. Nobles and kings, faith and war, culture and learning, trade and innovation. These laid the foundations of the modern age. This is the story of how Europe was born. In the first 2 centuries AD, the massive Roman Empire encompassed the Mediterranean. It was a time of stability, prosperity, and peace. The citizens of the Pax Romana, Roman peace, enjoyed a flourishing culture, a fair quality of life, and relative security. This was achieved through Rome's central government and advanced infrastructure. A new religion was born on the far eastern borders of the empire: Christianity. Beginning as a small Jewish sect, it slowly spread throughout the pagan Roman world. Embraced by the emperors in the 4th century, it became the official state religion. By that time, however, the glorious days of Rome were left behind. The empire suffered from inflation, plagues, famine, and invasions. It was becoming impossible to rule from a single center. In 395 AD, the empire was divided in 2. A Western Empire with its capital in Rome, and an Eastern Empire ruled from Constantinople, also known as the Byzantine Empire. While the East was urban, rich, and prosperous, the West was rural, poor, and weak. It did not last long. Deep in the forests beyond the imperial borders, barbarian peoples were on the move. These were mostly Germanic tribes led by warlords and loyal bands of warriors. These groups were increasing the pressure on the Rhine and Danube rivers. Left with no other choice, the Western Empire began to allow them entry. Eventually, the borders were breached, allowing various peoples to migrate and settle within the imperial frontiers. Whether guests or invaders, these peoples divided up Roman lands, and imperial authority collapsed. In 476, the barbarian leader Odoacer deposed Romulus Augustus, the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire. This child emperor had no real power, but his removal marks a turning point. The Western Roman Empire was no more. The Dark Ages had begun. Romans, Christians, barbarians. These were the 3 main components that combined to form medieval Europe. Around 500 AD, Europe was covered with newly established kingdoms, ruled by barbarian kings. Their elites emerged from among the Romans and the barbarians who gradually converted to Christianity. The most prominent kingdoms were the Ostrogoths in Italy, the Visigoths in Spain, and the Franks in Gaul. However, these kingdoms lacked the essential elements needed to govern successful states. The populations of the great cities of antiquity declined, and some fell into ruin. The Roman transportation system broke down, and communication and long-distance trade eroded. Coins disappeared, and there was no longer an economic system to support professional armies. Literacy declined, administrative systems were paralyzed, and most importantly, peace and security vanished. This impoverished rural West became increasingly localized and politically and linguistically fragmented. In the early centuries of the Middle Ages, it paled in comparison to its powerful neighbors.
In the 6th century, the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I sought to reconquer the West and restore the Roman Empire to its former glory. However, after taking Italy from the Romanized Ostrogoths, the peninsula fell victim to new invaders, the Lombards. The Byzantines were forced to accept that the division between East and West was permanent. But soon, they would have to accept another division, this time between North and South. In the 7th century, Arab armies swept through the Middle East and North Africa at an astonishing pace, creating a massive Islamic caliphate where a single civilization had once thrived. There were now 3 civilizations: Islam, Byzantium, and the medieval West. For a brief moment in the 8th century, it was thought that the fragile and weak West would be swallowed by the Caliphate. Muslim armies crushed the Visigothic kingdom in Spain and then poured into Francia. However, they were defeated by the Franks led by Charles Martel at the Battle of Tours in 732. Islamic expansion in the West was halted, and the victorious Charles gave his name to a dynasty that would change European history forever. The Carolingians. Charles Martel's son, Pepin the Short, seized the Frankish throne in a coup. He fought the Lombards in Italy and granted the Pope the autonomous state he desired most. Pepin's son was the famous Charlemagne. After ascending to the Frankish throne in 768, he fought for decades to expand his kingdom. Ultimately, he came to dominate most of the Western Christian world. In 800 AD, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne Emperor of the Romans. More than 300 years after the fall of Rome, the West once again had an emperor. The Carolingian Empire was the first great power of the medieval West and left a lasting legacy. Charlemagne sponsored an intellectual and cultural flourishing, the first of several medieval renaissances aimed at reviving the lost knowledge and culture of antiquity. The empire spread various political structures, institutions, titles, ranks, ideas, and dreams to the West. Most importantly, the ideal of a united Christian West. These formed the cornerstone of medieval civilization. The Carolingian Empire was short-lived. The effort to establish a centralized government in the West suffered from inadequate infrastructure, small cities, a weak economy, a limited bureaucracy. After Charlemagne's death, his 3 grandsons fought each other, dividing the Frankish Empire among themselves with the Treaty of Verdun in 843. The Middle Kingdom rapidly shrank, leaving West Francia, which would eventually become France, and East Francia, which would one day become Germany. These kingdoms continued to divide and fragment, a process accelerated by external pressures in the 9th and 10th centuries. A new wave of invaders attacked the crumbling Carolingian world from all sides. Vikings came from the north, navigating Europe's coasts and rivers, plundering and terrorizing the populace. The Magyars surged from the east, sacking vulnerable settlements, and finally, Muslim pirates landed on the southern shores of Europe. Europe was under siege. As the West collapsed under repeated attacks, kings lost their power, while local elites grew stronger. Europe was being covered by a dense network of wooden castles that served as fortified residences for local noble families. From these castles, lords subjugated the surrounding peasants, exploiting their resources. The lords ruled their lands through coercive force. In previous centuries, peasants had been an integral part of infantry armies, but new military innovations, such as the stirrup, made cavalry the decisive force. This new style of warfare required resources that only nobles could afford. Consequently, the European elites became full-time professional warriors. In a world ruled by a warrior nobility, regional power was obtained through vassalage. One noble provided land and protection to another, expecting loyalty and military service in return. Kingdoms were becoming complex webs of personal relationships and mutual obligations. Kings were generally weak and could easily be overshadowed by their powerful vassals. This is commonly described as the feudal system. It would take centuries for centralized states to re-emerge in the West. The next video will cover the rise of the Ottoman Empire, its impact on Europe, and how it brought an end to the Byzantine Empire. The next video will be a continuation. Please don't forget to leave a like. Have a great day.